So welcome to Crush the Chaos. This is the April edition. I can't believe it's already 4 months into the year. Um, 2026 is going pretty strong, especially within the AI and automation arena. So, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. So essentially, what this is for is to kind of help people get informed and reduce some of the chaos of what they see in their working environments, whether that's their own business or their employer, and kind of give them a way to maybe figure out ways to suggest or ways to create different automations and maybe reduce that chaos a little bit through different processes. And that's why I have the panelists on, because each one of you has a different perspective on how to reduce that chaos in the business, whether that's through, in this case, through doing things a little bit more ethically, doing things, transitioning people from certain industries into other industries, so forth and so on. We kind of want to make sure that the leaders don't get stuck in the weeds, kind of get them out so they can work on the business. And then essentially what you want to do is kind of diagnose what's dragging your business. And I've kind of put together a little chart here is like the chaos trap. Basically the leader gets into this chief problem solver role when they really should be the chief architect. And you have your talent that because of that kind of has different feelings around leadership, and that could cause a high churn rate or it could cause reactive hiring. What you really want, again, is to be aligned and adaptive to what you need. The growth model, of course, you don't want to force it because that just makes things much more stressful in your environment. You want to have something that's a little bit more regulated, systematic, leverage with other tools that you can use and things like that. And what we're trying to figure out, of course, is kind of how to break free from it and get kind of what I call engineering freedom. Stop surviving the chaos, actually design the architecture that makes it obsolete. So I'm Philip Brown. I'm a systems and automation strategist. Um, Basically, what I do is I design legacy scale systems that eliminate operational drag for elite leaders. That could be in a corporation, that could be in a small, medium-sized business. Um, Elite is defined differently in my mind than in most. So, I'm not thinking an elite leader is like a Zuckerberg or an Elon. An elite leader is someone who tries to lead with compassion and lead with kind of their audience of employees and clients in mind. Also, I'm the creator of the Ghost CEO framework and host of the Crush the Chaos. So one of the things that hopefully we'll discuss and this put this together right is kind of the autonomy blueprint. So what we try to gain is like a frictionless scale that essentially, based on our panels today, kind of requires three elements, right? We're going to look at like ethical foundations, um, adaptive talent, which hopefully Bruce will move us into that, and then systematic scale, which is kind of growth without a matrix, kind of a way to do way to compound it. So the first panelist is David Cohen. David, I'll let you kind of introduce yourself a little bit first, and then I'll go through introductions for the other two, and then we'll go into your presentation first. But first are the introductions. So would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, I'm David Cohen. I live in Toronto, Canada. I've been here for 40 years. Prior to that, I've lived in the US, born in New Jersey, grew up down the Jersey Shore. I've worked with organizations all over the world on organizational values and how finding the authentic behaviors behind their authentic values, not necessarily their espoused values. I keynote speaker, uh, and written 3 books. The most recent one is Selecting the Best, which really is apropos for today. It's about how to hire people that fit your values of your organization. So they're retained, they last, they stay, they're productive. But also, I discuss in the book the new AI technology and how that works. And I'll get into that a little bit in my presentation, some of the pros and cons of using the AI technology. Married for 54 years. Dyslexia hits again. 54 years, as my wife would say. Can't say 55 because we don't know if we're going to make it yet. I travel around the world. So she said we've been married net 25, and I have 2 boys and 5 grandchildren. That's the introduction.
Awesome. Thanks, David. How about you, Bruce?
Bruce Thompson. I am a retired Marine Corps Master Sergeant who had many military occupational specialties during my 24-year career. Since retiring back in 2016, I spent this decade between uh, building nonprofit organizations from an idea to foundation to structure to operation. And I enjoy that so much that once I get one up and running, I move on and do the same thing for the next one. So I've done that 4 times over. And now I work as a career transition coach, assisting the military veteran community members to find what's next for them, talking about how to transition from military service into uh, government, public, private sectors, and explaining how we do the flip from what we knew and did in service to how it works outside of service. I'm here in Jacksonville, Florida, married, coming up on 23 years with 3 kids, 7 grandbabies, and just absolutely love it.
Awesome. Thanks, Bruce. Andrew.
Hi, my name is Andrew Frazier, and I work with entrepreneurs and business owners and help them to sell more, maximize their profit, and finance growth. As a business owner, there's so many things that you need to know that it's not possible, and your business can't go any further than you're prepared to lead it. So, what I focus on is helping business owners move forward faster and easier. Over the past 17 years, I worked one-on-one with over 1,000 business owners and taught tens of thousands of people about business. And in that time frame, I've seen a lot of patterns and worked with a lot of people and really outlined the masterpreneur journey, which takes you from startup to scaling your business. And it's the path that everyone must go through. But most people get stuck along the way. So I'm going to talk more about that in my presentation. But my background includes having a degree in mechanical engineering from MIT, serving as a naval officer, serving as a corporate manager and executive, leading a nonprofit trade organization, and finally, coaching, consulting, and training entrepreneurs. And we've written 3 books and created the Small Business Pro University. I'm here in Montclair, New Jersey, and I've actually been married 32 years. So we got 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s. So we fit together pretty well as far as marriage and family, which is very important.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. All right. We'll continue on here. So we're here to elevate your vision. Obviously, this is an executive panel we have today. We're kind of uniting culture, talent, and systems together. So we'll start off with David Cohen and, kind of go into your presentation. Let's see. You should be able to take the screen share.
There we go. So
Awesome.
I'm going to talk about the ethics behind it and try to hopefully make people think, because AI is rapidly growing. It still is in its infancy, but it seems to have taken over everybody's mindset. So let me talk about the ethical side of this whole thing and go from there. So what's key is there's positive aspects to AI. And some of the things that have been embraced by corporations is that it's faster, it's efficient, supposedly improves diversity, supposedly bias free. And one of the big fears a lot of people have is it reduces manpower. So there is that concern, which has not proven yet to be that accurate. But from the ethical point of view, there's the equity theory concept that how fair is this? How is the social exchange going to be impacted by this? Because, the fairness and the equity issues and the quality of life issues are the ones that people are concerned about. And altogether, this establishes an ethical foundation. So I'd like to get into, from a people perspective, what are the potential ethical issues that you should be aware of and you should be checking out? Because AI, there's so many different AI instruments out there, and you need to be able to say, does this AI algorithm that we use align with our values, our business policies, our procedures? Because here's the problem. Not all companies are going to have the same culture. And even if those companies have the same values, say respect, it doesn't mean that they define them the same way. So when you acquire an AI technology via an HRIS system, that's the philosophy and the algorithm put together by the company that put that together and sold it to you. But it might not meet your needs because it might not be right for you. So let's take a look at some of the issues. So the first one is bias and discrimination. The issue is AI systems reproduce the same bias of the people who put it in. It's, in some cases, garbage in, garbage out. As Amazon found out when they put $1 million into an AI system in order to try to begin to hire more women, therefore to reduce the bias of hiring mostly men, their concern was, why is the system still producing mostly men for interviews? And when they looked into it, it read the resumes of people who already worked there, which were men, and they followed that same pattern. Another problem, the class action lawsuit right now against one company that is up for age discrimination because the algorithm that they created somehow figured out if you're over 40 years of age, you shouldn't be a candidate. So they were not getting candidates who were over 40 years of age. So you need to test that algorithm. The second is transparency. I say to people, if you're going to use an algorithm, you're going to use AI, and you're going to make decisions using that AI, you better be able to justify that, and you better be able to explain your algorithm. And I have met many HR people that can't even spell the word algorithm, let alone explain it. So the question then becomes, if you can't explain the algorithm, how do you justify the process you're using, taking accountability for it, and you wind up blaming, it's just the technology. It's like when Windows first came out and it wasn't working. Everybody blamed Microsoft, but it wasn't Microsoft. It was the people who designed it, their problem. And therefore, you're getting low validity through these assessments. For instance, if if you take recordings or use this to take recordings off of, for let's say an interview or something else, if you don't speak the same language with the same accent of the people who designed it, who tested it, you're going to get a lot of words that are written out in gibberish or perfectly good words that make no sense in the context. So you've got to really test this and make sure that you're following up with it and you're following it live. It's got to be that people get misjudged, they get overlooked. There's inaccuracies in measurements. There's a couple of technologies now that say by tonality, they give you basically a psych assessment of the individual, and they'll tell you whether they are a good fit for your organization. Facial expressions are being used, but facial expressions we know are different in different cultures around the world. And also the technology has discriminated against people of color, and it's also against women because the technology was developed by men, and so the facial recognition is based on men, so white males. So there's a problem with that. So you might wind up with an invalid result if you don't understand and test it before you use it. Privacy and surveillance issues. People are worried about Big Brother 1984. Are people going to be being followed, or is their information going to be tracked? Where does this information they put into their AI, where does it go? Who sees it? How's it used? Which has already created some employee relation issues, especially in Europe. And the other issue is now in Europe, New York City, and almost every province in Canada, you have new laws and regulations that talk about what you can and cannot use AI for. For instance, in most places, they're going to say if you put an advertisement on LinkedIn or any place, you've got to put in there that at some, even if it's just resume scanning, that you are using an AI technology as part of the interview process. That has to be transparent. You can't just say, well, we're going to see how it works out. You got to be transparent in it. AI technology is now being used for performance reviews. And I had one client who was using it, and the employees all complained that they wound up getting very similar evaluations. The written comments are pretty much, everybody's were similar. You know, one word was different here, one word was being different there. Plus the fact AI cannot judge behavior. It's a two-dimensional abstract. While people say it will be able to measure behavior, it can't do it yet. Therefore, you have inconsistent evaluations, which lead to bad morale, can lead to turnover. Retention's already an issue. You're going to make it worse if you're using AI. It's like many years ago, there used to be these forms that managers can have, like a booklet of quotes of how to write a performance review, and everybody wound up with more or less the same performance review. It's going to happen all over again. And on one extreme, the other extreme, you might decide that someone is not a positive employee or very productive. And because it's measuring, and what you measure is very important. I remember many years ago, there used to be a Delta ad on television, Delta Airlines, and it was pouring rain, and they get dismissed, and they all run to a phone booth, which probably very few of you understand what that is, but they run to a phone booth and they get this one person from Delta Airlines on the phone who makes 35 reservations. Well, in today's technology, that one person would probably get yelled at by their manager for being on the phone for more than 3 minutes. But yet they made 35 reservations, and they helped 35 people within the period of time they're on. So I always remember that when people say, well, you only have 90 seconds to answer the call and move on to your next one. It really depends. You have to understand there's more to this than just measurement. Generative AI has lots of errors. It's not uncommon for AI to hallucinate, is the, I guess, the technical term that people are using now, hallucinations. And therefore, if you're making decisions on this, you've got to be able to review the results before you actually use them. And that's one of the things that people are worried about in human resources in particular, is people losing their jobs. I don't think anybody in HR is going to lose their job as long as they're using AI. And as long as they're reviewing it and making sure it works for them and it meets their company's values and guidelines, et cetera, people will stay there. People will not be obsolete, because we're in the human business dealing with human beings. And you got to be able to put that human touch on this. The area that I'm most concerned about is the chilling effect on workplace culture. AI is trying to make everything the same. AI has raised the anxiety level of people. It's going to lower creativity. As a former educator in the school systems, I see, and when I was teaching at a college here in Ontario until recently, and AI had already started, I started to see papers come in that were written not in the style of the student. Matter of fact, I have two of my grandchildren are in university right now, and they're not allowed to use AI, to the point where those old blue books where you used to write tests are coming back. The problem is they don't know how to do handwriting, but they're coming back because the universities are not trusting students to be able to say it themselves anymore. So there's a whole issue around psychological safety. There's a whole issue around, if this is harmful to our culture of the organization, it doesn't fit our values, it doesn't define us the way we should be defined, people are going to be really upset with this whole process. So there are three, and why do I focus on the values part? Because there is no one universal set of values. Morals depend on culture, society in which it lives, and individual perspectives. It also depends on geographical history. There's also religious differences. And organizations are not immune to that. There's no wall that separates what's inside the organization from what happens in society. And what we know is this, and I'll give a quick example. One of the most common words that people put on their values list is respect. But respect doesn't mean the same thing in every geography. In Southeast Asia, respect means deference to those who are in senior leadership positions, deference to those who are older. Speaking up and sharing a disagreement or a difference of opinion with somebody who's in a managerial position, especially a leader, means you lose face. Once you lose face, well, you lose all standing in the organization and everybody's going to turn against you. So respect means deference. If I go to the Gulf region and I talk about respect, respect is about, from their history, is a tribal thing. It's, I can speak up, but before I speak up, I need to socialize that with everybody that's involved. So I'm not going to speak up until I've socialized it and know that people are going to accept it. And then the difference is, in North America, if there's a difference of opinion with your manager, you don't raise your hand. You just disagree with them openly in a discussion. Well, that's not going to fly in other cultures. So every organization, I don't care if they're across the street from each other, needs to understand that if the AI system doesn't meet the values of their organization the way you define it, that system is going to create all of those issues that I alluded to previously. And therefore, does AI present ethical issues? An Oxford study last year found 100 examples of publicized AI ethical issues. Yes, there's many ethical issues. Depending on the talent management activities, these are predictable. One is the hiring. Uh, I now have heard of people who are typing in words and making it in white font so it gives a direction to the AI algorithm to put their resume on top. Does it work? I don't know. I'm not in that. I haven't seen it work, haven't heard about it, but people are trying. They think it works. So there's all sorts of issues that you have to be aware of. The one thing about implementation of AI, I say it has to be a 3C approach. You need your CTO, your CHRO, and your CFO who work together in implementing this as a team. The IT group can't say it's our domain because it's technology and take it over and exclude everybody else. HR can't say it's our domain because it impacts people, and the CFO can't nix it because it costs too much money. It's got to be a combination of all working together with an eye towards the values of the organization. And in my latest book, Selecting the Best, I have an entire chapter on what are the issues using AI, what are the issues with voice, with tonality, with visual impact, with recording them and just not checking it. My recommendation is people, before you use it to recruit, to hire, performance reviews, succession planning, take it through a test to see what are the issues and make sure you can correct them before you go forward with it. That is my brief overview of the whole process when it comes to impact on technology, AI.
Thanks, David. Appreciate that. I think, I mean, I took a couple notes down, but one of the fun notes that came out of kind of the last half of your talk there is it just kind of hit me that AI is kind of akin to being in its terrible threes right now, right? It's like
Right.
your toddler running around trying to figure out everything, not necessarily the right thing to say at the grocery store, or not necessarily the right thing to touch when you have a hot stove or something like that, right? So it's kind of um, relative or kind of like that 3-year-old toddler running around, and people have to remember that you have to really direct it and really prompt it to do what it should do. Um,
And I also remind the people that when the internet was popular and there was the internet boom in the late 90s, early 20s, there were many web browsers. There was companies competing for it. And now we have basically three. When the
yep.
automobile was invented, there were over 400 automobile companies in the United States alone. And over time, it kept reducing down to basically the big three. And I have a feeling with AI, it's going to be the same thing. There's going to be a lot of technology out there competing, a lot of different companies competing for it. And eventually, it's going to boil down to only a few.
Oh yeah, and don't forget the long distance companies, right? Who pays 10 cents a minute anymore, right?
Yeah,
So,
well, when you go, it used to be when we went overseas, I lived overseas for a while, and it was like almost $10 a minute to call. And if I
crazy.
wanted to call home, because we didn't have a telephone, I had to go to a post office, wait in line, get in a phone booth, and make a collect call. And then my parents would complain that we were on the phone too long. And it was like 5 minutes. So, now the
Crazy time.
technology is, where you don't see too many phone booths around anymore.
No, not unless they're there for photo sessions, right? So awesome. Well, what I'll do now is next I've got Bruce coming up to kind of give us how to integrate military talent, right? Help them integrate into the workforce, which I think is an important topic and be will be especially important over the next coming years.
Well, I kind of old school, so I don't have a slide deck. I just like to talk. So
Sure.
what I'll come out and talk about is we talk military. 7% of the United States population has served in the military. That number keeps getting smaller and smaller. So what we end up coming down with is the military is a very different and unique um, organizations that have their own way of doing business. And so we're programmed, and I know people don't like hearing it, but we are, we're integrated into the culture, the organizational structures, and we are programmed to talk about the team, to sacrifice for the greater good, to focus on mission accomplishment. And so we don't talk about ourselves. We don't talk about how we impact. And so service members, whether they spend 2 years or 40 years in service, get into this is how things are done. And we know it and we're great about it. And, as we talk about crush the chaos, service members, veterans, we love the chaos. We thrive in chaos. We love being problem solvers. We love being the person who can do it all. Uh, if you talk about Jack or Jill of all trades, we we hang our hats on that. We love being able to do, hey, today I'm the comm guy, tomorrow I'm the logistician, tomorrow I might be HR. So there's not like one skill set that we live on or strive with. And then we start having this uh, window of our careers uh, coming to an end. And people start talking about, well, you got to go through the military transition process and the transition assistance programs. And you have to start figuring out what exactly is it you want to do? What is the job title? What is the industry? What are your target organizations? Where do you want to live? All these things have been answered for us because Uncle Sam has issued our next set of orders. We haven't had to write a resume. We haven't had to interview for roles. So we've kind of been completely shielded from the, uh, as we say, the civilian, the regular way of doing things because we've been in the military concept. Now, all of a sudden, all these different things we have to do is completely foreign to us. Uh, we're no longer the subject matter expert of the process. We have to learn these different parts. And you go from proud elite, the go-to person to I don't understand what they're talking about, asking, or how to answer any of the questions that need to be answered to move forward. And you want to see something that can humble you quickly. It's the I've gone for 20, 30 years having all the answers, and now I don't have the basic answers for myself. Instead of talking about the team, instead of talking about driving the mission, uh, we now have to talk about how do I speak and self promote, uh, how I played this role, and how my impact, worked towards the bottom line, how I reduced cost, how I brought in uh, increased benefits for the organization. How do I put myself in certain levels so I don't go from a executive director or a senior vice president, uh, correlation to going back to first line supervisor or manager. How do I keep myself from going all the way back to entry level? And of course, it's also the I've done this for 10, 15, 20 years. You're like, you were in service that long, but did you really do those functions? So we will try to incorporate all of our time in service and say we have that many years of experience when in fact we really don't have that. Myself, I had, you know, more than 10 military occupational specialties. I did a lot of different things. So when I say, hey, I did 24 years, I don't have 24 years experience in any one particular field. I have, 4 years here, 7 years here, and you start breaking it down. But it took me a long time to figure that out. So now we have to flip the script and almost do a 180-degree turn from what we knew to what we want to do. Well, as we say, AI is your friend. Um, Going through and learning how to use this AI technology, learning how to use social media sites like LinkedIn to support us and help us find where we want to go is important. But we've also been told by the IT department that's blocked everything not to use it, not to share, to stay off of it, not to post things. So we're having to break those habits and learn how to self promote, self market, build our brand, create this resume that speaks to our impact. And so we go to AI, and like we said, whichever AI platform is your favorite, is your preferred. Uh, and I've used multiple to help write resumes, to use to find employment opportunities in certain regions at certain companies. And it's learning how to harness the power of AI without getting lost in AI. And I think that's something we really have. So I joke, as a career coach, I'm kind of the middle of the road. I still like doing a lot of things old school, manual, but you know, running different prompts to help me pull information out about a industry, to help me take a base resume format that an individual has with a job vacancy announcement, use those together to kind of come up with a more targeted, ATS written resume, and then go back and humanize it. Those are important parts. But so many people will flood the system with so many job applications with AI driven resumes that nowadays a lot of companies, any role they have open, has 1,000 candidates within a week, sometimes within a day, depending on what companies they are. And that is what's really dragging down the timeline for employment. You know, I'm old school. I used to go up, find the help wanted sign in the window, walk in, ask for an application, fill it out, got an interview that day, maybe the next day, and they told you on the spot, yes or no. Uh, that's not how business is done anymore. So as we have more access to candidates, more applications coming in, companies are having to figure out what are those true skills that we need to have, and how do we filter those out from, do they really have them? Is this AI driven? And pulling them in there. And like we said, the hidden code that some people are hiding in the resume. I've heard about it. We've done a couple tests just to see, what it would look like. It hasn't looked to be successful, but I'm sure some places are. It depends on the technology that's being used. And again, as we talked about, from HR to tech, the the technical side of the house, and then your financial side. Which platforms are you allowing? Which platforms are you not? Are you staying up to date with them? Are you not staying up to date? Same thing with the individuals that are the candidates looking for their next dare to be great opportunity. How do you set yourself apart from everybody else when AI is kind of flooding the marketplace? And I would say, majority are using some level of AI to write their resumes, cover letters for those that still will allow you to send a cover letter to help stand out and show a personal side more than just a 1 to 2 page, experience, accomplishments, bullet type things. So as we go back through, and I talk the military veteran space, but it's the same thing for those who graduate in college. Same things coming out of the trades. Same thing for people coming high school going straight into the workforce. There's all this new technology, and we have to figure out our place, where we belong, how we belong. And so that becomes very overwhelming. And we have to be able to pull it back, come out and have a baseline. Hey, these are the vital parts, and these are the bells and whistles that you can add, not go with. But it really comes back down to, are we losing the human element of, yes, this, you have 100 candidates that made the screening that you're going to interview. all of them are capable of doing the job, but now we got to go back and find the cultural fit. We have to come back and find the person who is going to lift up a great team and make it even greater and not drag from it. So it's coming back through and teaching people how to interview, both for a role and HR, how to interview managers, how to interview candidates. Uh, and it's funny that we say that, but we see it all the time. Someone will show up to an interview, have not reviewed the resume for the applicant, not even sure what job they're interviewing somebody for. And so we put all these different pieces together. It really starts to kind of get into that factor of like, what's going on? How is this? Um, so the talent piece is always going to be the driver for the technology piece. Technology is always going to be adaptive. It's going to grow. But if we don't have the right people putting the right information into it, it's going to fail. So as we talk about, AI is going to steal jobs and we're going to have more unemployment in a matter, but we're going to bring in a new industry with different jobs, new jobs that we have to adapt to. It's the same thing. I'll be honest, I delivered newspapers as a kid. I don't see too many people delivering paper newspapers anymore because by the time that newspaper would show up to you, it's out of date. We get speed on our phones, we get it on websites, we go straight to a source. So we have to adapt to what we're doing, how we're doing it. And that's the whole thing with the human talent aspect is learning how we transition to what is current, what is necessary, and what has a future vice going into a industry that, the sand is running thin. It's almost at its end. So again, I love getting to do what I get to do. I talk to people every single day about their career paths, their journeys, who they are, what they want to do, and then I help them figure out how to get there. I work hand in hand with HR. I fight with IT because they want to block a lot of the sites that we use to help. So it's a give and take. So yeah, that's my 2 cents from the military talent perspective. So thanks for letting me join in and add that.
Awesome. Thanks, Bruce. Appreciate that. Yeah, I had a few thoughts on what you said. Like, you know, you really do have to set yourself apart nowadays when it comes to trying to find a new position, new opportunity. And one of the things that I've seen different organizations do is use AI in a way that it helps each person identify what their skills are, and it's all about how you prompt it and how you get the information back. But with everything advancing so fast and everybody so um, so used to having shortcuts for things, everybody's looking for that shortcut, which kind of leads into people being reckless with AI and not paying attention and just taking the first, you know, giving it a very short question prompt and not kind of feeding it the context that it needs. And I think we'll see a lot about context engineering and context usage coming up because we really, if I want to get a resume for myself or find out what my skills are, I have to tell whatever AI large language model I'm using a little bit about me so that it knows what direction to kind of look, right? So I think it's
Yeah,
really important.
and that's definitely one of those ones where I tell people you have to work with AI often enough that AI learns you, uh, understands who you are. Because if you're out there, I'm on Copilot today, ChatGPT tomorrow, Claude, Gemini, and you start using all these all the time, if you're not focused on the one that works best for you, it's not learning you.
Right.
And that's what really helps you develop. And again, if I give a prompt saying, create a resume for this job with no background, no history, no source document to kind of work off of, it's not going to be pretty. And even then, if I use a prompt as basic as create a resume for this job, I'm not going to get something quality. So we have to understand the work is in the prompts to get the details you want. And just because you got the initial doesn't mean you're done. It's the refining it. And then you have to go back and humanize it. And I think that's where a lot of people are looking for the easy button of, hey, look, I have something that looks like a resume. I want to submit it. And you're like, no, that's a starting point. You're not there yet. Like we got more work to do to cross the finish line. And that's where you
Yeah.
have so many people said, well, I submitted 1,000 resumes and no one's called me back. Well, you didn't put in the real work to target your resume for the role that you're applying to, and other people did. So that's where I try to explain the gap of just because you submitted 100 applications, 100 resumes, it doesn't mean you put 1,000 quality, you know, applications in. And that's where I think there's a disconnect still. And again, depending on your
Right.
age, some people still don't want to touch technology, AI in such manners. So
That's
it'll be
true.
interesting. So I'm looking forward to Andrew telling me all about technology now.
Yeah, Andrew's coming up next. We got, do you have some slides to share, Andrew? Oh, you're on mute. I'll get you off
Okay.
mute there.
Hey, everybody. I do have a few slides to share, but before I pull the slides up, just want to chat a little bit about small business and technology and the impact, and just a little bit about, what the other guests have shared too. I mean, I think that extremely beneficial to share that AI can have unintended circumstances or outcomes, especially when it comes to diversity, if that's not explicitly planned and understood from the beginning. And testing is so important. Also, um, AI can make everything, like was said, it can make everything the same. So you have to work hard to differentiate yourself. And, like you said, with the prompts and other key ways to do that. When we're talking about AI and small business, this is really the most game-changing technology ever, and provides a tool that allows small businesses to do a lot of things that larger businesses have done that they used to spend an enormous amount of money on. But as a small business, you can have access to that. But not only have access to that, you can move faster than larger companies. So it's an equalizer. Um, so, as a small business owner, it's key to incorporate AI in what you do. The first step is really taking AI and using that on things you already do. Um, what are you doing now, and what can you use AI to improve and do in place of you? Buying back more time, but not only just buying back more time. If you set it up right, AI will do things that even more than you're currently doing. So, very important piece of how AI impacts businesses. Let me see if I can share. Okay, there we go. So today I'm going to be talking about a smarter way to scale your business, because at the end of the day, if your business isn't growing, it's dying. So, what can AI and other technologies do to help you scale your business? So, glad to be able to be part of this session this evening, this time, and crush the chaos, and definitely appreciate that we're able to share this information with our wider audience, because it's so important to understand how technology is impacting you from others, and how you can utilize technology to impact others on your behalf. So when you're talking about business, there's a few questions that are critical for business owners. Number one, is your business growing, and are you making enough money? Um, you know, Understanding that question, each business owner, that's something is unique, but these are some common challenges that business owners have. And AI can, utilizing AI and technology can help you be able to um, mitigate and overcome these challenges. Another challenge: are you running your business, or is it running you? Um, Many business owners, are reactive, and they don't have the ability to be proactive. But in this environment, it's critical to become proactive. So if you can buy more of your time back utilizing technology, that allows you to take your business from being reactive and reacting to things that are happening to be able to be proactive in making things happen. And then, cash flow issues. Do you have cash flow issues, or do you need financing? Um, you know, Cash flow issues is a common problem for most small and medium-sized businesses, because you don't have access to capital the way larger businesses do. And so both of those things are key. I mean, one of the things that AI and technology can do is really provide you with financial projections and other things that can help you manage your cash better. It also can reduce costs so that you don't need as many types of platforms, or you don't need as much of it, manpower or other things to run your business. So AI really can help you in with all the types of challenges that you have within a small business. So, it's a game changer, especially on the finance side. Um, One of the key things is having a business plan, and having a good business plan. And most business owners don't even have a business plan, or definitely don't have a complete, accurate, or up-to-date business plan. And AI allows you to do that in short order. And failing to plan is planning to fail. So being able to utilize AI to write an even better business plan that you currently have, of course, you need knowledge to be able to utilize AI effectively. Garbage in, garbage out. So taking what what you learned, building that into prompts. And one of the other things that I do that's been super helpful is really taking AI, the output, and instead of just taking it directly, um, asking AI to rate what it provided to you and enhance it. Because by doing that, you continually get better and better output. And you may want to do that multiple times, review, rate, enhance, and I'd like to incorporate this into what your new response. So definitely when you're utilizing AI, you don't have to take directly what it says. It's good and important to really beat the AI up to make it give you better responses. So, again, I'm Andrew Frazier. Like Philip, started out with a paper route in fourth grade, 7 days a week for 5 years, which is a great experience that a lot of young people don't have nowadays. So now, another side of business and business advisors is how do you help businesses grow? And I think up until now, many times the support that you may get or the way you address challenges is having a diagnosis without, or so, having a prescription, deciding what you want to do without having a thorough diagnosis of what you need. Many times, business challenges are multidimensional, but many times what's prescribed is single dimensional. You know, maybe you're not having enough revenue, so you should in common thought, it may be you need to do more sales, but that may not be the only issue. Might be you need lead gen, but you also need to improve your operations so that you can handle it. So you know diagnosing what you need and where you are is key. And over the 17 years, I've learned a lot and sort of figured out and set up a assessment that helps you to assess where you are, and utilizing some AI in it to really make it multidimensional. And what we call it is the Masterpreneur Growth Assessment. And what we do is laid out the 5-step journey that every business owner needs to take to go from startup to scaling. You start working on your business, then you start working on the concept of your business, then in your business, then on your business, then on the future of your business, and then scaling your business. And each level has its own challenge. It also has a goal that you have to work towards. There's a certain structure you need to build into the business, and there's a certain leadership skill you have to demonstrate to move forward with the business. And it constitutes 5 steps that the business has to take. There's an architecture or structure of growth factors. So there's 10 growth factors. So those 10 things affect your growth. And as you grow each one of those, your expertise and your capability has to grow along with it. And then we put it into a matrix, a 10 by 5 matrix or a 5 by 10 matrix that allows you to diagnose where you are and what you need. And when you put it in a matrix like that, there's over 9 million combinations. So there's not really anything like that out there for diagnosing businesses. But utilizing technology and AI was able to create this. And I think that, for business owners, figuring out how to diagnose where you are and what you have, and that will help you move along the masterpreneur journey and increase your likelihood and magnitude of success faster and easier. So that's really what I wanted to focus on. There's even more to it, but at the end of the day, utilizing technology and AI really gives you the power to do things that you could never ever do before, and the ability to out perform larger companies. I'll leave you with this. One of my colleagues is utilizing AI, and his goal and expectation is that he's going to be able to build $1 billion company with only 10 employees. And that is possible now, which is amazing to even think about. And that can describe a little bit of the power of what AI could do for you and your business.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it. I think we are in a place where we need to understand how to harness and how to use the tools that are available. They keep coming every day, every hour, it seems. Um, Somebody's creating something new. So, and with businesses, you're always trying to increase your audience, increase the awareness that people have of your business, and increase your revenue ultimately. So I think it's important to try to kind of get the knowledge to use the tools that are available to you as fast as you can. Let's see. Let me go back to sharing my screen and we'll continue on with the discussion here. So basically, I mean, one of the things that I think everybody needs to remember is we are ultimately the architects. AI may be special in many different ways and can do awesome stuff, but we're the architects of what we need done in our lives, in our businesses, in our society, and in our culture. So we need to kind of remember that and not let, the AI or any of this um, kind of hoopla like this. Everybody's like pushing this over exaggerated, you need to do this, you need to learn this. We have to kind of slow down sometimes and remember that, okay, what do I need? What does my business need? What does my audience need? So I think it's really important that we kind of, engineer it so that we can let it run itself and we can do what we need to do. Just killed my slides. So what I want to do is discuss a few things now. I think one of the things, David, that you said, and I know you said you have to go here shortly, so I'll I'll kind of pull that back. I
Yeah, I have
will
time.
put that slide back up at the end, but we'll have that opportunity to stay there and let everybody kind of contact us. Um, but what is your take on? I know you talked about will AI take our jobs? Um, my thought is it's going to cause more jobs. Um, but kind of ethically, like, how do you think we need to use AI in the businesses? Because we can do a lot with it, but like I said before, it's kind of a toddler, so we have to really manage it. So is it going to make our job easier right now, or is it really making things take longer?
Yeah, I think that AI is not going to, it's some jobs will be eliminated because they're repetitive and they are technical. But I don't think, as I think it was Bruce who said, they're also going to create jobs and there's going to be new jobs created as a result of it. And we have to be aware of those and skill up for those. I think that, uh, as I said, recruiters were worried it was going to take their jobs, but I don't think it can take their jobs because, especially now, there's a lot of misinformation. And as Bruce alluded to, there's a lot of really good people who are highly qualified for the jobs, who fit your organization's culture, who AI is passing over for whatever reason. And if you are not checking those quote rejected resumes, you're not doing the job because there's could be gold in those rejected resumes. So I think that people have to, we said, it's new. People have to adjust to it, find out a balance. Uh, it's not going to be easy, but it is something which it's going to. I think that if people rely too much on AI, which some people are, they're going to find out that they have a real talent issue because they're going to hire a lot of people who say they're technically astute, but when they get on the job, they're not technically astute because they haven't tested that in the interview or they haven't tested that with a sort of a bench test to say before we hire you, here's a project we want you to do with that technology or that skill. Prove to me you know how to use it, not just that you amplified it through AI on your resume. So a lot of people are going to theory talk about things they can do, but in reality, there's going to be a lot of realization that there's been amplification through AI in order to get the job, but the person doesn't have the capability to do the job. And that's on one
Yeah.
side. The other side is, as Bruce was talking to about, the most important part of a job is your behaviors. And I've done a lot of research on this. People are hired for their technical knowledge, their education, their experience, promoted for their success, and fired for their interpersonal behavior. They're fired because they're not a good fit. Matter of fact, the research we've done is it's 73 to 80% of jobs are lost, not because of technical capability, but because of behavior. And so AI is not even looking at that. And most interviews don't even cover that. So there's going to be a lot of confusion out there. And a lot of hiring managers are going to get angry at the HR department for not checking that because they rely on technology too much. So they have to start to amplify the softer skills, which are the harder skills to amplify, and AI is not going to pick them up.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And one of the things that I thought of while you were saying that is, how do we can have AI help us with a resume, and the HR departments and managers can review our resume. But I know there's a lot of companies out there that are starting to look at cultural fit. Like, do you fit with the culture of our office environment or our business environment? Um, are you an ambitious person? Do you fit with the growth concept that we have, our missions and values, right? And
Right.
some of those things you can't tell by a written resume. You've got to actually converse with the person and find out who they are. If are they a innately positive person? Are they ambitious? Or do they look at the glass half full? you know Sometimes you want the glass half full, sometimes
Yeah. And
you
some
don't.
organizations also want people who are highly compliant, people who
Yep.
follow procedures, don't, go out of line. How do you know that? You don't. And that's why, I think my book is really helpful for both hiring managers and people looking for a job, because I talk about how do you get to the essence of that stuff in an interview. And it's so important. One example is if somebody asks, and Bruce, this hopefully can help you. Love to talk to you offline, see if I can help. Uh, if somebody asks you, how do you do something, or you do this, yes, or instead of answering yes or no, answer with a story of how you did it, including the actions that you took to do it. Just don't answer yes or no. And give them that 2, 3 minute explanation that engages them that you know how to do it, not just that you're technically astute, but you can deliver.
Yeah, and that's an awesome point. I'll tell you, someone who's conducted many interviews and then has prepped, a few thousand people for interviews. I always tell them, an interview is a conversation with storytelling. If you're not a good storyteller, it's going to be hard for you to come across and really show your technical knowledge. If you're someone who is giving the yes, the no, the 5 to 10 second answer, I sitting across as the hiring manager or part of the hiring team, I'm questioning, your um, how authentic your resume was to what you can do. And I joke, I'll admit I'm a fan of the Big Bang Theory. I was like, there's jobs where I'm going to hire a Sheldon Cooper if I'm looking for an individual contributor that I am going to put in uh, a a cubicle or in a office by himself with no interaction. Technically proficient, has all the answers, but has zero people skills. Cultural fit nightmare. But I'm going to hire a Leonard who is not quite as technically proficient, but has the people skills, the likability factor. And when we talk about retention rates and when we talk hiring, we got to focus on retention because it is very expensive to make a bad hiring decision. You know, so if you have a organization that has a large turnover, we talk cultural fit. If it's within that first year, is it the culture or was it a bad hire? And that's where we have to come back through. And some people rush. Uh, I've seen a trend right now, and I'm not a fan of it, but your initial screening and interview process is not with a human, it is with AI.
That's
So
right.
you're sitting there, you're talking to a screen, and it's that weird vibe. And I've had some of my clients tell me, yeah, I logged on and I got the message, like 15 minutes prior. Oh, by the way, your interview is going to be with an AI bot. And you're like, well, how do I get, you know, the uh, the nonverbal communication cues of is this going well? Is it not going well? I'm like, you get nothing. You get a blank screen, and you're just answering questions with no feel, no vibe. And if I'm not getting that vibe from the interviewer, how am I going to show my nonverbal cues? And it's a whole miss. And this is why interviewing is a skill set. People like you just ask these questions. I'm like, yeah, you have people that will read a script and they will give you some generic answers, but they're not a good interviewer. The good interviewer is going to pull those questions, and it's not, hey, I asked you questions 1 through 10. It was like, what were the in between questions, the follow up, and the same
Oh,
thing when you're being interviewed. When they ask you a question, what is your follow up to that question? And especially, I've been through all the versions of stress interview, casual interview, like with buddies, the panel, and it's those nuances that we have to get people to understand. And when people push technology too far too fast and pull the human element out, that's where we're having a lot of bad hiring decisions.
yeah, just to amplify that, there are some of these bots are simulations of people. So you think you're talking to somebody. They have you on camera as well. And that camera, that AI is analyzing your body language. And that body language analysis, depending on cultural background and maybe your accent or how you're feeling that day, can be a real misinformation. So you get passed over. So you know, that's a difficult situation because this technology is not producing the kind of human understanding necessary to make a proper hiring decision. And the cost, you're absolutely right. The cost of a bad hire is for an entry level non-technical position is 1.5 times salary. For a manager, it's usually around 3 to 5 times salary. And if you get to a senior director, it could be 8 times salary. So you figure that you're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. I did one with one of the mobile companies, and we actually figured out that their cost of turnover, when you talk about legal fees and travel and everything else, their cost of turnover, they were losing $23 million a year on bad
Oof.
hires. And to get that culture fit, to understand it, you need that human contact. And those bots that are doing the interviewing, they're not going to do it.
Yeah, AI is not going to fix that. I mean, if we haven't been able to fix it in years, AI is not going to fix it. AI is only as good as the humans that program it, and I don't think anybody's really good at, hiring consistent rock stars for the position that they're hiring for, right? Because each person may be good for one position, but not good for another position. So that's one thing that the AI is not going to consider. It's going to be focused on that opportunity and not something else that may be in the company that they'd be a fantastic fit for, that could essentially cost the company nothing because they're already in the interview, right? So it's kind of it crosses over into a leadership component as well, and how well the business leadership is kind of putting out that culture of, hey, you need to interview everyone to make sure that we have the right fit for the company, the right fit for the position. And if there are other positions available for that person, take the opportunity to think about that while you're in that face-to-face interview with them, because that's important.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I will be the um bring an alternate perspective. Um, I think that AI is going to take an awful lot of jobs, especially from larger organizations. Although, right now, many organizations are not successfully um, implementing or managing the change to more AI. But I do agree in the human resources area that areas where there's a lot of qualitative and soft skills are where you have an advantage. Um, where it's quantitative or doing analysis, then AI is amazing at that. And there's a lot of people in a lot of organizations that that's their role. Um, and so those areas are going to be much smaller. However, more and more people are turning to entrepreneurship. And, like I mentioned, AI can really provide you with the ability to do a lot as an organization and be more successful as an entrepreneur business owner. So, it will just, I'm confident it will displace a lot of people in larger organizations, especially in the analysis side, marketing analysis, financial analysis, and technology development. Because now that AI programs, many times the larger companies, they have more people in technology than any other department of the company. And I remember at my old company when I was in corporate, I talked to one of the technology managers, and he was like, we could get rid of half of our technology department and not even feel it. So, given that business is more competitive than ever, there is going to be a lot of shift towards entrepreneurship, towards gig workers, and more and more your qualitative soft skills are going to be what creates opportunities for you, and then also just experience and knowledge become more valuable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think one of the things on the line of the taking jobs, I heard the other day that most companies are, for the programming aspect, comfortable with replacing junior programmers with AI, but not senior programmers or architects. The problem is what happens when those senior programmers or architects move on or retire. There's no track for the junior programmers to ascend to the senior or architect programmers, right? So we're putting ourselves in a situation that's going to have to be hashed out. Like, okay, if we're using AI for all this, where's the advancement path going to go for the people who may not know anything about, the senior positions, but can't get to it because there's AI in between it. So,
Right.
Yeah,
I think,
absolutely right. There's going to be, you already see that there's a supervisor can't find a replacement if everybody's AI.
yeah,
They don't need the supervisor, but then you got a middle manager and there's no continuity. It's a domino effect that's going to have a very dangerous impact on succession planning in organizations. What's also interesting, to build on what Andrew was saying, though, the first AI was credit scoring, which has been around since 1960. And I work with a lot of banks and a lot of people that are in those areas, a lot of executives. And the theme that I always get is credit scoring turns down 10% of people that should get credit and accepts 10% for credit that shouldn't get credit. And that's never been fixed and never will be fixed. So if that's been around for nearly 50 years, AI is, no matter what, is still going to hallucinate and make mistakes. It might get it right 90% of the time, but if there's not a human there to check that, then there's going to be an issue. And banks are having that problems now because banks are going so much to technology that there's no more personal banking relationship at branches who used to be able to argue with head office, this person should get credit because of this, this, and this. Don't turn them down. Well, those people aren't going to get credit anymore. So there's going to be a lot of animosity built up in customer relations and everything with AI. And you can get into you know, all sorts of issues with these bots that you interact with online, trying to get information, and they just don't understand it because you can't, they're programmed to understand it the way a technology person would, but not the way people that aren't speaking tech would do it. So you're not getting
The
answers.
training has a long way to go. And one of the biggest things is what happens when the AI breaks? Because I mean, I don't know if you guys um, play around with stuff, but I've got like a Claude bot, Claw bot, Hermes agent. I've got all of those things running just to like see how well they do, and they've all broken on me. And I've had to go in and use my technical knowledge, which most people won't have, to fix it because I asked it to do something and it didn't understand it and it changed something that innately broke itself. So, there's a long way to go before we have that um, true autonomous possibility. But I mean, it's fun to play with the machines that can code while you're sleeping and you wake up to new code. But if that code is crap, it doesn't make a difference what they did last night, you
Yeah.
know?
And,
So
and I'll joke with that. We had the issue today. A couple teammates were messaging back and forth with, one of the platforms that we use, and they're like, "Hey, has anyone noticed it hasn't been producing like it had been? Using the same prompts and same inputs, we're not getting the quality that we were getting out." And it was like, okay, well, there's a glitch going on right now. And of course, it's not our technology, so we have to wait for, you know, the owner to go back in what went wrong, what happened. And we look at it, Oracle, AWS, all these layoffs that have been happening. Um, well, who's there fixing it? And so you have these gaps, and that's the piece uh, we don't happen. And we talk about, hey, we want the senior developers, the architects. Well, I correspond where that's going to go if we saw the trades. 70s, 80s trades were everything, and everybody understood, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, you know, those were steady careers that you had. But then everybody was told, go to college, get your degree. Trades were kind of talked down upon. And so we have 2, 3 decades where people were basically told not to go into trades. And now all those people from the 70s and 80s that have been in trades for 40, 50 years are in retirement. And they're like, where's the pipeline? Where's the backup? Where are the replacement? And you're kind of like, well, you told everybody that blue collar work was beneath us and we should never aim for it. And now all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, those are the solid careers that aren't getting the layoffs, that aren't, uh, you know, as uh, volatile as some of the tech industry ones are. So it's interesting to kind of see the ebbs and waves of, hey, this is what we need. Oh crap, we don't really need that, but we do need this that we said we didn't need, and the adjustment is always ongoing. So it's like being a trader. Can I stay ahead of the market? And right now, we're not really staying very far ahead of the market when it comes to what industry is hiring, what is the need. We're very reactionary, which is never a good thing to be.
Yeah.
yeah, I think we're super focused in one direction. And I mean, what you said is true. I've heard different people speak on, as the white collar jobs go down, the blue collar jobs are going to go up, and people don't know how to do the plumbing, the HVAC, the electrical, you know, a lot of that stuff. The auto mechanics, like
I
I
I joke.
remember when I used to love going out to work on my car. Now I can't even get my hands in there to it's so packed full of like electronics. And you gotta the one piece to fix something is like $3,000 because it's some highly specialized component. But I think it'll twist back to where the technology is is the cheap interaction and the luxury interaction is the personal interaction.
Mhm.
And I've heard other people start to talk about that too, is like human interaction, like the face-to-face stuff with a lot of these, like imagine paying a little bit extra more just to talk to a human on your customer service call instead of an AI bot or something like that, right?
Well, well,
And
look at
there's
going to
plenty
the
of people
store.
out there that will.
How many stores have self checkout?
Yeah.
And trying to get anybody or anything to respond to that is like
And
whatever
90%
happened
of the
with
time I still go through the one with the human.
right. What happened to customer service? And you know, people joke all the time. Oh, I don't want to deal with people. Well, the human factor is always going to elevate your business. It's going to help you stand out. You have
Yeah.
to have the right people. They have to have the knowledge. They have to be trained well. But you know, when I'm swiping and there's an error code and I've got to like wait for 10 minutes for someone to come over, you know, I'm moving 1 star reviews, so we have to go back through and do it. So always
There's
something to
there's
Yeah,
consider.
there's some improvement.
one of the supermarket chains in England just took away all the self-checkouts for that reason. People were losing contact, they were losing customers, and they said, wait a second, people don't like these things, but we force them to use it. So we're going back to regular checkout.
Yeah.
And
And
there's going to be a balance.
yeah. And you can also think of it a little bit about the outsourcing craze. At a time, everything was getting outsourced to India and other places. Um, but you didn't get the same quality and in different ways. And as the goal and as expected, there is outsourcing, but I think there's you know based on it, there became more insourcing after a period of time, and that may happen with AI. But one of the differences, AI learns really fast, so it's a question of what moves faster. Does AI catch up, or by the time people are out? um, but I'd also say technology adoption, we're all pretty much halfway through our lives, but the ones that are not halfway through our lives, their lives, based on statistics, a lot of them are more used to technology and more used to impersonal experiences. I have some real estate
What can I
property, and I have tenants. I know they're home. I'm like right there. I call them, no answer. I text them, they text me right back. So, you know, the generations coming up are more comfortable with the technology. And if something happens that they have to adopt it, sort of like the pandemic, and we had to adopt Zoom, um, that could shift.
Yeah, and kids are now learning programming in school. My granddaughter's in grade 5. She's been taking programming for 2 years. It's like we used to take foreign languages. Now the foreign language is programming.
Yeah, it's just another language, right? Well, I know we're at time. Um, I'm gonna throw the cards back up so those who are watching can reach out to us on LinkedIn. Um, one of the one of the things that came to mind is if everything's swaying in the back towards the favor of blue collar workers, and blue collar companies, one of the things that AI needs to help them with is returning their phone calls. I can't tell you how many times I've called like plumbers, HVAC, lawn care and not ever gotten a call back. So that's the one thing that could probably improve. But other than that, I think they'll have a big advantage um, over white collar here shortly, because that's going to be, as long as, if we're listening to the Elons, the Zuckerbergs, the OpenAI and Anthropic and whomever else is out there talking about this, it's going to be 10 years and we're going to have robots in our house, and soon they can cook, clean, and do everything else for us. But until then, you know, we got to make sure that we can rein it in and keep the 3-year-old toddler in check, because it definitely still needs a lot of training. But I appreciate you guys being on, and I think we've had a great conversation.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, it was great. I'm glad you allowed me to be a part of it.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, guys.